Now in Ukraine, Kiev officials and pro-Russia militias have agreed to a brief humanitarian truce around the flashpoint eastern town of Debaltseve. Now officials in Ukraine's interior ministry say that the temporary truce, which has been in place since 800 hours GMT, will last for 7 hours to evacuate the civilian population from the area. Pro-Russian forces have condemned the humanitarian truce. The town, which has been surrounded by pro-Russians, is a crucial rail hub linking the militia-held cities of Donetsk and Luhansk. Debaltseve has witnessed deadly fighting in recent weeks. Now, German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande are due to visit Moscow to advance their new peace initiative for the end to the raging violence in Ukraine's volatile east. The two European leaders are set to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in an attempt to get his backing for the peace plan. Merkel and Hollande discussed the new scheme with Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko on Thursday. Poroshenko has already welcomed the plan. The details of the proposal have not been released yet, but it is set to be based on the Minsk peace agreement signed in last September. Meanwhile, intensive fighting between pro-Russian militias and Ukrainian forces have left hundreds of civilians dead in recent weeks. Joining us now via Skype from Berlin is Manuel Ochsenreiter. He's the editor-in-chief of Zürst. Many thanks for joining us here on Press TV, Mr. Ochsenreiter. Now, first of all, do you want to take a guess at what this peace proposal by the German Chancellor Angela Merkel and François Hollande would be?
Well, we witness now a real poker game when it comes to Ukraine. The Ukrainian conflict is a geopolitical conflict, and it's not a regional conflict. So when we listened especially to Angela Merkel in the past, we heard a lot of certain proposals. For example, she campaigned some weeks ago for a type of free trade zone between Russia and European Union in case that the so-called Ukrainian state integrity and the geographical integrity will be kept. So what they will do, Angela Merkel and Hollande, they will offer Vladimir Putin, of course, a type of deal, a type of business, to tell him, if you don't push anymore for your national interests, and it's not just about Ukraine, it's also about Russia itself, then we offer a big financial benefit. This is a principle, by the way, the West is using in general. Also in the past, it worked very well out in the Middle East to convince the political elite by money, by benefits, to not to push anymore for the national interests or for the sovereignty interests of the population. At the same time, behind those so-called talks will be a threat, atmosphere of threat, because the United States debated some days ago as well to deliver arms and weapons to Ukraine. So one part of this deal, or this offer, this so-called offer, could be if the Russians don't agree to the Western proposal, they will arm the Ukrainians to the teeth and will support the Ukrainian army much more. What we shouldn't forget with all those peace talks is the matter of fact that Ukraine is a failed entity. It's a disintegrated entity where Western Ukraine is governed by Petro Poroshenko, and Eastern Ukraine doesn't want to be anymore part of the Ukrainian state.
Indeed, Mr. Ochsenreiter, that brings me to my next question over, does it matter what Russia wants, considering it does have influence, but it doesn't control the pro-Russia militias in eastern Ukraine?
That's one of the most important points. So this is why I say this is more about Russia itself than about the situation in eastern Ukraine. Of course, if Russia would, for example, not put any more humanitarian convoys to eastern Ukraine, if Russia would close its borders for any help coming from Russians for their countrymen in eastern Ukraine, in that situation it would damage very much the situation of the self-defense forces in eastern Ukraine. We have always to say there is until today no evidence at all that Russian troops are in eastern Ukraine, as the NATO is claiming all the time. There is no evidence. It is still just a claim. So it is more the real aim of Angela Merkel and Hollande, who are both members of the NATO, is of course at the end to topple the Russian government and to make pressure on Vladimir Putin. By the offer of free trade, they want to encourage the liberal forces in Moscow to make pressure on Vladimir Putin, because for liberal oligarchs, free trade means a lot of money, a lot of more benefit.
Okay, well, we're going to have to wait and see how this pans out. Of course, Editor-in-Chief of Zurich, Manuel Ochsenreiter, joining us from Berlin via Skype. As always, we appreciate your comments here on Press TV.